atop that skyscraper from 1907. Again, designed by Burnham, the man who gave us the White City. That building, while not very tall by today's standards, notice how it does stand there as a behemoth above the brick buildings, yeah, that came before it. 175 East Jackson, just a 5 to 10 minute walk from our dock. If you left our dock and walked north on Wells Street, you'd walk right into that building that Burnham built. A lot of nice high rises from the original era, post-fire, are in the downtown loop. And then as things change in time, you get Art Deco. Limestone buildings that are said to be a tribute to the machine era. That's the Chicago Board of Trade from 1930 by Halliburton and Root. See the verticality you get? It draws your eye to the top. They do that with what are called ribbon windows. The elegant setbacks that you see as the CBOT gets smaller towards the top, that is the results actually of zoning laws. They passed laws in this town back in 1923 telling developers once you build to a certain height on your building, you've got to reduce the mass on top so more sunlight comes into the city streets. The Chicago Board of Trade, that building, that was the tallest skyscraper in Chicago for 25 years. The building is a mind-melting 45 stories tall. And the statue you saw on top of the CBOT, her name is Ceres. Ceres is the Greco-Roman goddess of grain. The CBOT originally was a grains exchange. Now the tallest high-rise in Chicago is this beautiful black boxy structure here from 1974, standing 1,451 feet in height. She's 110 stories tall. You know this building. You love this building. It is, of course, the... Very well done. Yeah, my locals wasting no time telling me they're right. It's the Sears Tower. Willis is just a company, you know, that nobody cares about. Willis is the worst company to ever grace the face of the planet. I'll bring you back to the Sears in one moment, but here on the right, look at that tower. Nothing about that looks like the Sears, right? The Sears is modern, from the mid-century. That's from the 90s when they had color, material on the mind, right? Big material, big architecture, big color. That was the response to 3 decades of modernism. That's 311 South Wacker Drive from the early 1990s. That 65-story tall building is overdone to a boorish extent, done by Cone, Pedersen, Fox, a guy out of New York City. It makes sense, right, in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, they had a lot of color, a lot of material, a lot of pizzazz, and again, 3 decades of corporate soul crushers, right, like the Sears Tower. Now here is the secret. Here's how they built the tallest skyscraper in the world back in 1974, the Sears Tower. This is all done by bundle tube construction. Bundle tube construction, folks, there are 9 separate buildings that make up the Sears. They're put together in a 3x3 configuration. As you look up there at the 23rd tallest building on the planet, 3rd tallest building in the Western Hemisphere, see how only 2 of the 9 bundle tubes go all the way to the tippy top? That was all invented by an ingenious engineer from Bangladesh named Dr. Fazlur Khan. Dr. Khan invents bundle tube construction, this idea, this notion. He pitches it to Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill. He then builds that building alongside Bruce Graham, the architect. From 1974 to 1996, the Sears was the tallest on the planet. Now we're going to dive a bit deeper into all this stuff right away, and that's okay, we love doing this. See these 2 dark black boxes here? That's Gateway Center 1 and 2. These corporate soul-crushing buildings are from the 1950s and 1960s. As you gaze upon Gateway Centers 1 and 2, that we all wave to that young couple. Yeah, no, not you, sir, just those 2. That guy just stole y'all's thunder. So Gateway Centers 1 and 2, these were designed by Bruce Graham, built in the 50s and 60s. Folks, the same guy who built the Sears in the 70s, built these in the decades previous. Can we all agree? These just look like precursors, yeah? What could become one day a Sears Tower. If you had these 2, add 7, call it 9, put them in a 3x3 configuration, stretch them into the sky, that's how they did it. These then, though, are more indicative of what you'll see when we talk about the Miesian black boxes. The Miesian black boxes. The father of modern architecture is a man from Germany named Mies van der Rohe. Van der Rohe moved from Germany to Chicago in 1938. Historians go, oh, okay, yeah, all right. Now here to the forward is the Madison family. The Madison family just came downtown on the BNSF line from Naperville. Let's all wave to these kids from the suburbs. How are you? Everyone wave specifically to that child. Hey kiddo, how are you? Those waves aren't for you, ma'am. Everyone's stealing thunder today, bro. All right, ready for this? Here to our left-hand side, our beloved Daily News building. This thing's from 1929. It's an Art Deco building by Halliburton and Root, the same firm that did the CBOT. Folks, we nicknamed the Daily News building here the Sphinx building. We call it the Sphinx building. Why? These annexes you see here at the extremities, those are paws. The building then is a lion facing the river. You all with that? Boom. Don't overthink this. Help your neighbor. So why Neo-Egyptianism? You may already know this. In 1923, archaeologists uncovered King Tutankhamun's tomb in the Valley of the Kings. Unlike other burial chambers in that part of ancient Egypt, that burial chamber had not been ransacked by grave robbers, folks. All the gold was in the burial chamber they buried King Tut with. Boom. People are watching women go to the polls in America. They're going to speakeasies, drinking bootleg liquor. Gangsters are running these streets here in Chicago. That archaeological dig ended up in conversations about architecture. Do go see the Daily News building. It's worth your time. A very famous poet and author used to work for the Daily News Company, a man named Carl Sandburg. Carl Sandburg once wrote an amazing poem about Chicago. Do look it up later and read it. It is entitled Chicago. In that poem, two of this city's nicknames, the City of Big Shoulders and the Hog Butcher for the World. Now, buildings of today have gone back to being big glass boxes. They have fins, they have blades, they have shadows, they have high-tech tempered glass, which is all about going green and reducing carbon footprints. The buildings have glazing on the glass, giving us a variety of colors. This one is clearly amazing. Welcome to 150 North Riverside Plaza. The fins are blades that run vertically here on the water's edge, this facade. The blades and fins, they pop in and out as they go vertical. Then they're offset from one another. That sprinkle-like effect you get on the facade is meant to mimic the small waves here on the Chicago River. Now, why does this building look the way it does? 150 here looks like a tuning fork, and we call it the Tuning Fork Tower because that is all the space that Getch Partners had to build this 55-story tall building. Now, why is that? In Chicago, you legally have to have a Riverwalk. That ate up 40 feet of space on the water's edge. On the other side of the building, inbound and outbound Metra and Amtrak trains. Now, you can't build into the tracks. You can lease the air from above the tracks from the railroad and build, say, a park. They did build a park above the tracks. There's the Riverwalk on the water's edge, and there's it mirrors itself top to bottom. Like, folks, the pattern you see towards the top as it sets back into the sky, as you come down what I've come to call the shadow lines, all the shadow lines from top to bottom, that's the exact same pattern that you have down here. Like, if I flipped Wolf Point South upside down, it would still convey to you the exact same thing, right? Mirroring itself top to bottom. It's a gorgeous new glass and steel tower, 60 stories in height, brand spanking new stuff by Pelly Clark Architects. Pelly Clark Architects did the Salesforce Tower in San Francisco. They did just lease the naming rights on Wolf Point South. They now call it Salesforce Tower. Note the green glass on the right here at Wolf Point West. I think BKL Architects is great with glass. The green glass is preferable on buildings, particularly on the river, as it mimics the color of the river water, which is green for two reasons. There is a clay bottom as well as two types of algae which grow down there. Now, Wolf Point West there has studio 1, 2, 3 bedrooms. The studio, though, is very small in that development. Only 492 square feet is the studio. If you've lived in one, you know that's pretty small. And then here on the North Branch, prepare to be amazed. See the triangular shaped units here to the forward left? They may look like they're still under construction. That's what's known as European industrialism. These were built 1988 by a man who served in the U.S. Navy and who was quite an accomplished sailor. His name's Harry Weiss. Check this out. Harry Weiss loved the triangle. It reminded him of the sail of a sailboat. These 4 units here all have private dock access. Note the round windows like porthole windows. See that circular staircase? You'll find things like that inside of lighthouses. Yeah, the nautical themes that we associate with Harry Weiss, thanks to him, being in the Navy and being a sailor. He loved the triangle. We'll talk more about him later. Here's a fun tidbit for you all on the cottages, folks. 3 of the 4 original purchasers of those units from 1990, they still own them today. Yeah, they bought them for $350,000 or $500,000 back in the day, whether they were 4 or 5 stories tall. The only one that ever sold a second time sold now 8 years ago. They had paid in 1990 for it $350,000. Sold it 8 years ago for $1.2 million. That's right, yeah. For all you youngsters out there, invest in real estate. Okay, get your child a mortgage today. Yeah. I think once Jerome quits or they fire him, they will drop rates maybe 0.25%. And as you all know, folks, once the banks own your soul, you can really stretch your legs and live your life. All right, you guys get it. Speaking of lovely property acquisitions, speaking of the zoning laws in Chicago requiring accessibility on the water's edge, here's a very beautiful development from the early 2000s. Welcome to Kinsey Park. Kinsey Park has mid-rise and high-rise units, but along the water's edge here, there are 70 4-story townhomes. They're modeled to look like European row houses. Get this, all 70 of the townhomes here were purchased They were all bought before they were even built. Before they broke ground, yeah, very robust financial backing, right? Early 2000s, a lifetime ago. They went for 1.2 back in the day. You want one right now? 1.8, 1.9 million. They would fetch a lot more in neighborhoods like Streeterville, the Gold Coast, areas like Old Town, Lincoln Park, Lakeview. And then here to the right-hand side, folks, yes indeed, when you see these old brick buildings, you could go by them without thinking much about them. That brick building on the right there is from 1909. It's an old warehouse by George Nimmons. Nimmons, I call him the warehouse guy, as he built 13 of them here in Chicago. And as you all saw, the young lady watering her plants on what is arguably the best balcony at that development. When you see those black balconies, that is a surefire way to know that people are now living in that old building. South Loop, West Loop, hang out in those neighborhoods. River North, yeah, they're all old warehouse districts. Now in River North, go to Untitled, go to Boss Bar, go to Three Dots in the Dash, go to Rossi's, go to Snickers, Green Door Tavern, Billy Goat Tavern, and yeah, those are very high-end recommendations in River North, but don't worry, those recommendations go all the way down to, oh my God, honey, why are we here? Type places. Have fun at Rossi's, have fun at Snickers, be careful at Boss Bar. They'll get you. And then forgive me if I did not mention, I think I did Three Dots in the Dash as well in River North. But if you've been to the clubs, lounges, you've hung out at the hotel, you've done all that, come down to the water's edge. We do spend time in this park, it's lovely. Welcome, welcome to Aaron Montgomery Ward Park. Now Ward Park here named in his honor. Many of us remember Aaron Montgomery Ward as being one of the big catalog company giants here in Chicago, not unlike Spiegel or JCPenney's, right? Sears and Roebuck, Marshall Field. What folks tend to forget though about Aaron Montgomery Ward is that he actually battled the city of Chicago in court for over 2 decades using his own money to preserve a certain parcel of lakefront property, which then politicians and developers could not wait to build upon. They actually said they hated Aaron Montgomery Ward for getting in the way of progress. Folks, the area of land that Ward battled the city over, though unpopular in his time, went on to become Chicago's front yard. Millennium Park, Grant Park, Museum Campus, Maggie Daley Park, yes ma'am, it is the jewel in the crown when you consider the 26 miles of lakefront here on beautiful Lake Michigan, the 5th biggest lake on the planet. Years ago, the city saw fit to make sure Ward had his own park. And then get this, Aaron Montgomery Ward stored his wares, right, for his catalog in the warehouse district known as River North. He stored them in that massive warehouse you see past Chicago Avenue. Wait till you see how big that warehouse is. It dates back to 1912. Affectionately known today as 600 West Chicago Avenue. When that building was built back in 1912, it was then the world's largest poured reinforced concrete structure ever built. Right, just one of several warehouses for the many catalog companies here in Chicago. Overwhelming to think about. And it's a prairie-style warehouse. Prairie-style buildings like the Frank Lloyd Wright homes you might think of when you hear prairie-style. Just like those homes, they have a lot of horizontal lines. They keep a low profile. They tend to hug the earth. Now the building is a great example of adaptive reuse. I like adaptive reuse projects, right? It proves the point that not everything needs to get torn down. You can preserve buildings, preserve history, find some deep-pocketed investors who do want to build frankly in big cities like Chicago. People now live, work, play, dine, work out here. People go boating here. There's a yacht club here called Kingsbury Yacht Club at the 600 West Chicago Avenue building. And you can see all the detail here as we go by. Nice river walk. And then things do shift dramatically up here. The signs of the industry, which used to dominate the Chicago River and frankly a lot of Chicago's past, you can still see remnants of that up here. What remains of the parking lot here at the old Chicago Tribune Freedom Center, built in the 70s by SOM. This is where they manufactured newspapers for decades. The parking lot is on the river, not to improve the commute for those coming to work. The parking lot down here on the river is like, put the parking lot down by the congested, polluted, filthy Chicago River. And build your parking another way to the water. The architecture actually does reflect that former negative attitude held about this river as from Roy Market Street and down, right? Cargo vessels had the right of way. Polluted, congested, filthy, odorous. Only since the 1980s has this waterway made this turn towards beautification. The lovely yacht departing there from the Kingsbury Yacht Club, a 55-foot Sea Ray. That's a nice boat. Got barges out there, full of material. Use the kayakers as scale to appreciate how massive that stuff is. Elevators, cranes, silos, the bridge house there at Halsted Street. This is a good glimpse into what used to be here on the Chicago River. And friends, just off the starboard stern, just behind us there?
Yeah.
That is the southern tip of Goose Island. Welcome to Goose Island. It's where the beer company gets its name from. That industrial park that Goose Island is used to glow. It was dangerous, a scary place, one that Chicagoans avoided back in the 1800s, early 20th century. In fact, they called the old industrial park when it was glowing and frightening, and they called it Little Hell. Little Hell. Hell's Kitchen, they called it. It became an Irish enclave. That's why it's called Goose Island. The Irish immigrants who settled out there in the 1800s, they used to hunt the geese on that island to fulfill their protein needs. And then why did an old industrial park that was called Little Hell become an Irish enclave? You already know. It is due to the, sadly, anti-Irish sentiment that existed in Chicago in the 1800s. As the Irish arrived here in the city, they were told by Chicagoans, you got to go live in Little Hell. Now, before you feel too badly for the Irish immigrants living in Little Hell, know this. During the 30 hours that the Great Chicago Fire ravaged this downtown and destroyed all that you see on our tour and then some, thousands of Chicagoans, in a last-ditch effort to evade the flames and save their lives, they all fled into Little Hell. For those 30 hours, as the flames did blow through here, those people all survived. Thousands of lives saved during the Great Chicago Fire in a place called Little Hell. Thank you. Yeah, the fire spared Little Hell. That should give you pause. Like, wait a tick. Maybe, just maybe, sinning is the way to go after all. You're all way too kind. Thank you. My parents hate that joke. My dad said, that's terrible, David. And then he made me walk home from Mass that day. Not funny, 2.25 miles in my penny loafers. I lost the pennies. But that's just my 2 cents. Hey, thank you. I know I can trust you because all your shirts match. That joke is designed to see if y'all would mute me. No one's coming at me, and that lady, I think she really enjoyed it. Allegedly, I am crushing it. Indeed, my dear, indeed. All right. Steel framing being laid in real time, concrete being poured, caissons being made, heavy machinery, workers wearing different colored helmets to signify what type of task or job they have. You're watching the hotel get built in real time. You're seeing where a riverwalk will be, parks and gardens, restaurants will be here as well. The overall project here, though, at Halstead in Chicago, and amazing to watch all this happen in real time. This all belongs to Bally's. Bally's miraculously got the contract to do so. They're building Chicago's new casino. Yes, this is where I'll lose it all in the future. Yes, indeed. So this is a long-standing wish list item for the people who have run this city for several years there at the 5th floor of City Hall. And frankly, I'll tell you, is we in Chicago are very excited for our new casino. We've all read several articles assuring us the casino will solve all of our problems. A lovely view here to the forward. You're peeking into Chicago's grid system. We have a northeast-southwest grid system that was all part of the Daniel Burnham Plan of Chicago, published in 1909. You're peeking into this grid system at an angle, giving you a unique perspective. I call this maximum skyscraper exposure. He envisioned our grid system, our alleyways. Burnham envisioned things like Upper and Lower Wacker Drive, Navy Pier, Buckingham Fountain, Grant Park. He envisioned things like Union Station, the old post office. Much of what you see in Chicago are due to his efforts. Here's the quote from Daniel Burnham, then I'll leave you all for the first of 3 very short breaks. Burnham once said, make no little plans. Make no little plans, for they have no magic to stir men's blood, and they themselves, they may never actually be realized. He said to aim high in work and in life. Enjoy that quote, enjoy the view. I'll take a short break, say hi to your neighbors, hit the bar, hit the head. We'll pick back up very shortly. 2 more big legs of this trip to go. Thank you all for listening. Are you enjoying this stuff? Do you like it? Absolutely. Thanks very much. We appreciate that. Yeah, we love doing it. No one has more fun than us. We'll continue having fun after this short break. Cheers. Thank you. With the view here to the forward, as we come through this location for the second of 3 times, welcome back to Wolf Point. Make sure you come down to Wolf Point. It is the confluence of the 3 branches of the Chicago River. Obviously, our contemporary collection of architecture is here at this location. A beautiful view off the left-hand side towards the main branch where we're headed right now. And over here on the right, you get a good look at the aforementioned 150 North Riverside Plaza. Folks, to keep that very skinny building stable, engineers installed on top of it what's known as a tuned mass damp. A damper can dampen the effect of the wind. There's 250,000 gallons of water on top of that building spread across plus 12 concrete tanks. When the building vibrates in the wind, the water up top begins to slosh about in the tanks. That creates the inertia to shimmy the building back to a standstill. Now, people in Chicago will share with you where to buy your pizza, north side or south side, or they'll tell you their favorite buildings. People in this town may say to you, you know, I love the curvy glass building at Wolf Point. Here it is from 1983, right? And they were crawling out of the modern era, morph and textualism here, following the bend in the river. This is 333 West Wacker Drive, designed by Cone Pedersen Fox, the same guy who did the 311 South Wacker Drive building, the neighbor of the Sears. The blue and green glass even here mimics the green river and blue sky it reflects, and all the polished marble and granite there at the base that came from Vermont. What's up, Vermont? Yeah, I know, never. Man, people do not come to Chicago from Vermont. They do come from New Hampshire, but that is just Vermont upside down. All right, geography jokes for 5 of you. Yes, I too am a Rand McNally enthusiast. All right, friends, here it comes. Here to our left. One of the world's biggest office buildings ever built. Here it is, the Merchandise Mart. Designed by Graham Anderson Probst and White, built 1930. This was all paid for by Marshall Field. He consolidated 13 of his warehouses into this one building for his mail order catalog company. It used to be owned by Joseph P. Kennedy. He commissioned the busts that you see. Aaron Montgomery Ward, Marshall Field, among others, he called them the princes of merchandise. Ready for this? The Merchandise Mart has 7 miles of hallways and corridors. The building used to have its own zip code. It was 60654. And the building, they say, has 4.2 million square feet of space. The Sears Tower has 4.7. At night, they do a thing called Art on the Mart. Look up and go see at night, Art on the Mart. Floors 1 and 2 are open to the public there at the Merchandise Mart. Do go see that building again from 1930. And get a load of the view here to the forward. Welcome, welcome to downtown Chicago here on the main branch. Now heading upriver, you can glance to the right and see how beautiful the Upper Wacker walkway is. You can also see how beautiful, how active, how nice the new Riverwalk is. The Riverwalk is a 1.25 mile stretch of awesomeness. Shopping, dining, drinking, there's giggling, there's boating. You can have it all. So friends, you could go by these old brick buildings and not think much of it, but here's another prairie-style warehouse by George Nimitz. This one's from 1914. This is the Reed Murdoch Center. See up on top of the clock where it says Britannica? To the right and left of that, you'll see a lion's head. That lion's head remains from 1914, when that was the symbol for Monarch Foods. A foods company occupied this warehouse first. And then also notice, if you follow the brick columns to the very top, see the terracotta tiles up there? They arrange them to look like little plants, right? Little grasses, grains, weeds, flowers, things that grow in the prairie. That's some very neat, subtle detail on that prairie-style warehouse. Again, from 1914 to Reed Murdoch Center. And now, I've got it here for you. I've got your new favorite building in Chicago. Here to the right-hand side. Oh my gosh, there it is. 55 West Wacker Drive. What happened to you, bro? Who did this to you, Phil? Why are you the way you are, bro? So that heavy, coarse concrete, that kind of bunker-esque look with the fancy schmancy windows, that is what's known as brutalism. That is brutalism. That comes from the French, béton brut, which roughly translates to raw stone or coarse concrete. Folks, that style was popular 1960s, 1970s amongst governments and universities. It's very inexpensive and easy to work with. And as you'll note, with brutalism, it tends to induce your compliance. And now here is something actually neat and lovely for you. Out to the forward right-hand side. See the 24-karat gold trickling down the top of that green terracotta tower? It is real. That is 1/500th of an inch thick. That's our beloved carbide and carbon building from 1929. It's a historical landmark on Michigan Avenue called the Pendry Hotel. The building broke all the rules, as they said back in the day. It's Art Deco with green terracotta, black marble, and then, yeah, gold on top. Now, why would Chicagoans put gold on a skyscraper in 1929? Well, King Tut's tomb, the gold discovery there, the roaring 20s, the market's hot, they're making money. But architecturally speaking, we put gold on the carbide and carbon building because that had already been done in New York City. Folks, the Radiator building in New York has gold on it. When you look up and look at the Radiator building, you'll get images in your mind of what the carbide and carbon building looks like. And then really quickly, and that's okay, look to the right. See how fanciful and decorative the base of the Jewelers building is? Then go to the very top, you'll see how decorative and beautiful the cornice is. The Jewelers building there is from 1926. They modeled it to look like a 15th century Italian monastery. And by showing you that decorative base and the decorative cornice, that showcases what's known as the Chicago School of Architecture. Early buildings in the city, high-rises, 1880s to the 1920s, they were made in three pieces. A tripartite configuration, the base, the shaft, the cornice, kind of like a column, kind of like a story, beginning, middle, and end. So folks, one of Chicago's lesser-known nicknames is Paris on the Prairie. You can thank Daniel Burnham as he imagined himself in Paris when he was imagining his ideas for his 1909 plan. Take, for example, here on the right, the Upper Wacker Walkway is Parisian-inspired, modeled after the River Seine. The Michigan Avenue Bridge ahead of us, that is modeled after Alexander III's bridge in Paris, France. The bridge is from 1920, designed by Edward H. Bennett. The bridge is the old shoreline of Lake Michigan. Michigan Avenue is the original shoreline of this lake. We named the bridge the DuSable Bridge. The DuSable Bridge in honor of Chicago's first non-native resident, a man named DuSable, who was half African, half French, spoke a variety of languages. Folks, he lived here on the lakefront as a fur trapper trader and frontiersman from 1777 to 1800. And then where DuSable lived is here to our left. That's where his homestead was. The building which sits where he lived is lovely. It's never looked so good in my life. They just turned the Tribune Tower into residences several years ago. New stonework, new windows. Beyond the signage is today a lap pool for the residents who live there. Up top, look how amazing this is. Upside down L's. Those flying buttresses indicative of French Gothic revivalism. Yeah, man. The Tribune Tower by Raymond Hood and John Mead Howells. Two guys out of New York City. Folks, what you're seeing there, the Tribune Tower, that is the winning design from a competition held by the Tribune Company in 1922 when then owner, Colonel Robert McCormick, had a competition to see who could design the most beautiful building in the world for their downtown Chicago office. Over 260 entries came in from architects from 13 different nations. And now, let's have some fun with the architecture. Here to our left-hand side, you'll think it's Art Deco, 1920s, 1930s. You'll feel like you're in Midtown Manhattan right now staring at Raymond Hood's RCA Tower, which we all call 30 Rock. It's all on purpose, a tribute to 30 Rock, a tribute to Art Deco, but built in the 80s, you can't call the NBC5 Art Deco. You've got to call it what it is. They call that Echo Deco. The Echo Deco NBC5, but wait, there's more. If you call me right now, I will throw in for you flying buttresses. See the upside down L's here? Those flying buttresses there at the NBC5 Tower are a tip of the hat, a reference to the flying buttresses you just saw on the Tribune Tower. And with that said, I'm going to do that more and more. I'll keep showing you folks how architecture is a conversation over time. Different as all the buildings are, and different though the styles all are, they're all sharing in this stuff, right? One style begets the next. Architects constantly look for influence from other places, people, and things for their buildings. Makes the tour more interesting as we explore that concept and that being developed throughout the tour. Oh my gosh, here on the right-hand side in Lakeshore East. Do come see Lakeshore East, a lovely neighborhood here. In Lakeshore East, a fun building from the 1980s. Oh my gosh, it's a triangular-shaped structure called the Swiss Hotel. A triangle, yeah. Like the sail of a sailboat. The building looks like the bow of a ship. You may recall Harry Weiss. He strikes again. Yes, indeed. He built the Swiss Hotel in the 80s. Can't get a bad view due to that structure's orientation. And folks, to drive home to you all how into triangles Harry Weiss was, this guy once designed a prison here in Chicago. They built it. It's in the near South Loop, not that far from our dock. Actually, maybe you've been. The prison he built, folks, is a triangular-shaped building. Okay, when you see it, it's fun. It's playful. Then you get there, and it's just playful. That last joke's kind of edgy. I'm keeping it. All right, friends, here it is. Absolutely a real stunner. Very futuristic. Next generation. Inspired by the naturally forming crystals that occur in things like fluorite and sapphire. Standing 1,198 feet in height, 101 stories tall. Welcome, welcome to the St. Regis, the third tallest skyscraper in Chicago. The building has what I call wiggly shadow lines. The four buildings that make it up are just offset from one another. And with the sun beyond the clouds just now giving us that soft light, folks, your eyes aren't playing tricks on you. There are 6 different shades of glazing on the glass. Yeah, dude, it accentuates the widening and thinning of the building. Here's the kicker. The St. Regis there was designed by a female architect. Her name is Jeannie Gang. Jeannie Gang is from Illinois. She grew up in Belvedere, a small town outside of Rockford, Illinois. She's won awards for her work. She went to U of I, Champaign-Urbana. And she owns her own firm. I'm not done with you. The St. Regis, that is the tallest skyscraper built on the planet that was designed by a female architect who also owns her own architectural firm. Having said all of that, let's please hear it for our ladies here today. Ladies, number 1. All of y'all, number 1. You gotta share that title, yeah, good luck. So let's see, if ladies are number 1, and number 2, we'll put children. At 3, the elderly. They're cool, they know stuff, they've seen things. At 4, we're going with pets. At number 5, cherished memories. And then men, you get 6. But see, ladies, men love that joke. You know why? Because 6 is the biggest number I said so far. Let's go. Okay, this guy's like, see, honey, 6 is good. 6 is good. Welcome to our lakefront. We have 26 miles of it. Beautiful Lake Michigan, the 5th biggest lake on the planet, one of 5 Great Lakes. They're 10,000 years old. It's all melted glacier water from 10,000 years ago. We have 22 beaches, over 5,000 boat slips here in Chicago, spread across 13 harbors. Embrace the neighborhoods, embrace the river folks, embrace Chicago's lakefront. You're watching in real time right now, actually, as vessels have just joined us from Lake Michigan. Those boats just dropped down 6 feet from lake level to river level. The vessel's now ahead of us, about 100 yards out. They're entering into that narrow corridor, the Chicago Harbor Lock, built in 1938 by the Army Corps of Engineers. They operate it today, their flag flying there beneath Old Glory. The lock operates all day, every day, all year long, and the lock, inexplicably, is free to use. That is the only free thing in boating. Boat is not a word. Boat is an acronym. Bust out another 1,000. Folks, Navy Pier. Okay, here's the skinny. Navy Pier is not a bogus tourist trap. It's from the Burnham plan of 1909, the only pier they built of the several they envisioned. It's 3,300 feet in length. That's like 1 kilometer. So get a 2-kilometer walk in here at Navy Pier. The pier was used as an army barracks, okay, for World War I. For World War II, this pier was converted into a naval aviation training facility where quite literally over 1,200 pilots got very intensive flight training for World War II out here on Lake Michigan using 2 vessels, one known as the Sable and one known as the Wolverine. The new hotel at the pier is called Sable. There is a ballroom, it's epic. A theater there called the Shakespeare Theater, it's amazing. There's shopping, dining, drinking, giggling, boating, all that. But I tell you that history to really drive home to you all that yes, it's a tourism destination, but it's got a whole lot more going on than just that. Here to the forward, have the cameras out. Do take pictures here, friends, of what is arguably one of the world's most beautiful skylines, and enjoy this 55-foot sea ray plowing through the waterways, trying to get himself into the lock before they close the doors on him. Watch as their guests get their life jackets on, as all persons on privately owned vessels must don their life jackets when going through the lock. When the Cubs won the World Series in 2016, Jason Hayward got a boat just like that. That might be it. Rizzo got a boat called the Resort. John Lester got a boat called the Left-Hander. That was a long time ago. Now, Chicago has arguably one of the world's most beautiful skylines. Breathe it in. Enjoy, again, the lakefront, just like the river and the neighborhoods here in Chicago. And let's not miss this one, friends. Here to the right-hand side, that is Lake Point Towers. Designed by students of Mies van der Rohe, George Shipwright, and John Heinrich. It's from 1968, kind of reminds us of modernism, but the curvy walls there are indeed a wind-bracing tactic. At 70 stories in height, when the Lake Point Towers building was built, it was at that time the world's tallest all-residential building. It's one of a kind. That is the only building in this town you can live in that is east of Lakeshore Drive. Folks, it's illegal to build on land east of Lakeshore Drive. The lakefront is open, free, and clear. It's for the public. This one slipped through. The developer was sued by the city of Chicago. They said in court, you can't build on land east of Lakeshore Drive. The developer knew about, the city didn't, a very interesting legal loophole. Essentially, the zoning laws there were written differently, as that used to be a rail yard and a freight terminal, just different laws. City officials were not aware of that caveat. Developer was. They cited it. They won the court case. There's the building, right? Obviously, city officials were apoplectic. They closed that loophole right up. No more shenanigans or ballyhoo. No more chicanery or tomfoolery. No more skullduggery. Yeah, which I just added right now. Skullduggery. There she stands, one of a kind, Lake Point Towers. Formerly home to Sammy Sosa, Ozzie Guillen, Joakim Noah, Scottie Pippen, Alice Cooper used to live there, and all of our favorites, Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. Hooray! It's the Kurt Russell fan club here, folks. They all love Overboard. They all love Captain Ron. You know, they get it. All right, friends, here's where you're meant to enjoy the St. Regis from. This view is a real stunner. And engineering-wise, the building's got it going on, man. Towards the top, you'll see a big gap. That's what's known as a blow-through floor. That allows high winds to infiltrate that cavity, thus reducing vibration. That is a first of its kind in Chicago. The building also does have a tuned mass damper. The big concrete tanks up on top full of water, sloshing about to stabilize the structure. People have bought condos that are above the blow-through floor and beneath the tuned mass damper. You know me, I look forward to meeting these people. I'm going to mercilessly tease them about how they have, of their own volition, now allowed wind and water to work in tandem to stabilize their lives up high in the sky in this high-rise. That, to myself, folks, is actually quite unsettling indeed. Look how great she looks, though, right now, yeah. Enjoy. Boutique shopping district, hotel, restaurant, and condos there at the St. Regis. Hello. All right, now downriver, straight ahead of us, the second tallest skyscraper in Chicago. The Trump International Hotel and Tower is a concrete skyscraper. She is sheathed in articulated glass and steel. You'll see a bit more texture on Trump Tower as it's from '09. Buildings of today are just glass and shadows, but articulated glass and steel on Trump Tower. It's 1,389 feet tall, 92 stories in height. You do count the architectural spire on top as it is part of the building's overall design. You would not count the antenna that we saw earlier at the Sears Tower. Because a Chicagoan designed Trump Tower, a man named Adrian Smith, the building does have Chicago's architecture in mind. Each one of the setbacks on Trump Tower, they are set at the height of a neighboring structure. Part of that notion that architecture is a conversation over time, Trump Tower is referencing the Wrigley Building, the London Guarantee and Accident Building, and the IBM Building. You will see, and I'll tell you about those buildings very shortly. 2 years after Adrian Smith built the Trump Tower here in Chicago, he built a little thing in Dubai called the Burj Khalifa. When you see the Burj Khalifa now, you'll see images in your mind of kind of what the Trump Tower looks like, as they do share, obviously, a lot of similarities. Same guy, just 2 years apart. Now, the first of the three buildings that Trump Tower is referencing is the Wrigley Building. This one's iconic. This one's beloved. Make sure you go walk by it. Over by the Tribune Tower where DuSable lived. You get a good look at the Wrigley here to the forward right. That beautiful white building there with the clock tower on top. There's a south tower and a north tower here at the Wrigley Building. Walk in between the two towers that comprise the Wrigley, 1921, 1924. It's all Spanish revivalism, Spanish-inspired architecture. Friends, you may recall I mentioned, albeit briefly, earlier the Chicago School. They have the base lines, the cornice lines, that tripartite configuration. You'll see the base lines, cornice lines there at the Wrigley. And here's the cool thing. There are 250,000 white glazed terracotta tiles on the facade of the Wrigley Building. Each terracotta tile has a number on the back of it. They're all stored in a database, and they are all cleaned and or replaced over time. White glazed terracotta, very beautiful, but very fragile. White glazed terracotta is so fragile, I pronounce that word that way. Sometimes I'll tell guests it's fragile, which of course is a Trump Tower is referencing with its setbacks is Mies van der Rohe's IBM building. Do get a picture of this dark black box, friends. Here's 3 reasons why. Built in 1971, the IBM building is the youngest structure in Chicago to be declared a historical landmark. The building was Mies van der Rohe's last commercial building built in America before he passed away. Of the dozens of buildings that Mies van der Rohe built here in Chicago, it is the only one he built that happens to be right smack dab on the Chicago River. Nobody in this town calls it the AMA Plaza. Okay, that is bad for your health. We will throw you in the river. Yeah, okay. The American Medical Association, yeah. How about no Scott? That's a terrible Mike Myers impression, but you're welcome. All right, friends, Mies van der Rohe taught here in Chicago at what is now IIT. One of his students was a man named Bertrand Goldberg. Folks, Goldberg rejected modernism. He did not like the dark black box. How do you know that? He built these. Quite literally, the antithesis of modernism. He believed in nature, he believed in circles. Here are Goldberg's Marina City Towers. Marina City, aka the Corn Cob Buildings, also known as the Chicago Flower Towers and the Chicago Tree Houses. The units are petal-shaped. They are difficult to decorate, ask anybody who lives there. The buildings are from the 1960s. They are made of poured reinforced concrete. The balconies are enormous. You can use the vehicles in the parking garage there as scale to appreciate how big they are. These are said to be some of the world's most photographed structures, and they're featured in every movie ever made in Chicago. Now this next one is pretty amazing. It's from the 90s, so big architecture, big color, big material. The R.R. Donnelly Building, 77 West Wacker Drive here. Pull back and take it all in. The building is modeled after a single Greco-Roman column. The top of the building was an inspiration, or a tip of the hat to the Parthenon in Athens, Greece. The building also is modeled after Giotto's Bell Tower in Florence, Italy. If you don't know Giotto's Bell Tower, do look it up. Compare that to this, you'll say, oh my goodness. James de Stefano did it alongside a Spanish architect, a man named Ricardo Bofill. When Bofill came from Spain to build that building in the 90s, that was at that time the largest project of his life. So made mention earlier that Trump Tower is from '09. Talked about how it had the articulated glass and steel, giving you a different kind of texture when compared to buildings of today. I mention this now again because on the right and forward you'll see more of that articulated glass and steel. A beautiful 60-story tall building from 2009, built the exact same year as Trump Tower, but done by a different person. This is Pickard Shilton's building, 300 North LaSalle, to really drive home to you all that it's from '09. The nickname we gave the building back in '09, we called it the Flash Drive Building. Pull back and take it all in. See how it's a big, fancy, schmancy thumb drive that you probably paid way too much money for? In '09, that nickname made more sense, right? Your documents, your photos, your TPS reports, they were all in thumb drives. That's right. To really drive home to you all that that's from 2009, I have Pickard Shilton's new building for you. The exact same guy that did that in '09, now 6 years ago, gave us his new building. You've seen contemporary stuff before, but this will thrust you back into it. Go from 2009 to just 6 years ago. Pickard Shilton's new building is just out there past Franklin Street, beyond that bridge house. We call it the Hot Pocket headquarters. It's actually called River Point. The parabolic arch at the base is a gutter system. It gathers rain water to later be used in the park and garden. The park is built on a platform above train tracks. Trains run between us and the building along the water's edge. That's why you'll note the circular vents there that allow for the emissions from the trains. The curved linear facade of the building is designed to maximize the view and reflection of the buildings, the sky, the river, the boats here at Wolf Point, where a lot of our history resides, right? Hundreds of years ago, Potawatomi, Miami, Illinois, Algonquin groups, French fur trapping and trading as early as 1673 here in this location. The town of Chicago grew up around these very banks here. The first 300 residents to live in Chicago as a small town in 1833. They all lived right here. Declared a city March 4th, 1837. So, architecturally speaking, the curved linear front of River Point is designed to mimic the curved linear front of 333 West Wacker Drive. So folks, 6 years ago, none of these new buildings were here. We saw renderings for this stuff 10 years ago. The very same firm that built Salesforce Tower, Wolf Point South, they also did Wolf Point East over here, where you'll see Chicagoans sunning themselves at an indoor-outdoor pool deck there at Wolf Point East. studio, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms. And as you can see from the pool deck, everyone wants to live there. If my life comes crumbling down, if all that I built comes crashing down, I'm gonna live there. See that guy right there? I'd be that guy. Less awkward, less pasty, but that's me. I'd be that guy. I'm like, hey, how you doing? You like vodka? You like steak? Okay. No? All right. So make your way down to where that wedding party is. You know if their photographer brought them down there for a picture, that's a great place to be. Stand by that work of art there called Constellation with your back to the river. Have somebody get a photo of you here at Wolf Point. And if you all want to go nuts for them, you may. Congratulations! Way to go! You look amazing! Yay! There's love in the air. Love in the air. Which reminds me, I am terribly lonely. No, it's all good, yo. It's all good. I have all these buildings here to keep me company. And that's the saddest thing you've heard all fiscal year 25. You may want to go have dinner or grab drinks here at the Beatnik Bar. The Beatnik Bar in this old brick building, amazing. The brick building's from 1912. That building to our left sits on the site of what used to be the Sauganash Hotel. That is where they named the town Chicago, August 4th, 1833, from Chicago to Chicago. The natives who lived here, they called the swamp this town is built upon Chicago. That means strong or great. Yay. But guess what? Chicago, strong or great, that was a reference to the odor emitted from the swamp, as swamps are inherently odorous. But add to that, and this is true, leeks, garlics, and onions grew wild in the waterways here. The Native Americans ate them, named the swamp after them, like the strong or great odor from Chicago. And then this one's brand new. We've talked about the shadow lines of today, the high-tech tempered glass, the beautiful reflection of the clouds and sky. Welcome to 110 North Wacker Drive, a 55-story tall building by Getch Partners. The very same folks that did this are the ones that did the guillotine tower, the tuning fork, the sword, the dagger. The V-shaped supports here may remind you of the V-shaped base of their other building. And I want you all to enjoy the bridge houses. All the bridge houses are different on every bridge. They capture different styles of architecture from various years. That one there to your left is from 1914. And this is where bridge tenders used to open and close these fast fuel trunnion bridges all day, every day for cargo vessels that have the right of way. And here's a downtown favorite, here to our left from 1929, opening up just 1 week before the great stock market crash, the Civic Opera Pavilion. That is a throwback to the Latin alphabet, folks, because we so fancy schmancy and sophisticated. Designed by Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White, the theater is here front middle, and then offices wrap around it. See above the lettering on the balconette, see the comedy and tragedy theater masks? That imagery is an advertisement. Yeah, the limestone advertisement from darn near 100 years ago. The comedy and tragedy theater masks, yeah, they tell you what's going on inside the building. Now, as you shift from Art Deco, you got to remember, throughout the 1940s, there was really no advancement in this area. All the emphasis, of course, was World War II, right? As you come out of World War II, into the 50s and 60s we go, and the 1970s, they're doing modernism, right? We've seen the Miesian black boxes. Well, the interesting thing is that the very same firm that did Gateway Centers 1 and 2 here, Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, in the 1970s, they finally did let loose. They broke free, they went nuts, and in the 1970s, SOM built for us a big white box. Yeah, there it is, yeah, get it. Gateway Center 3. Now, we all do chuckle at that. It's still pretty plain, it's still a box. Office space was still the emphasis in the 70s, but that building, Gateway Center 3, notice what a far cry it really truly is from modernism. The building has a masonry exterior, so you're back to stone now. They did 3 decades of stone when they were first building high-rises, then 2 more decades when they began to do Art Deco. Then we shift now into the 70s, they're using stone again. The windows are recessed into the building, giving you shadows, texture, and depth. As you go vertically though, watch as the windows, which begin recessed, slowly punch their way out and then become flush with the facade. Oh my goodness. Also, the building is full of colors. There are 2. Did you know that 2 is twice that of 1? Yeah, check that math. If you double anything, it's all relative. It's a big deal. Folks, they call this the international style, and the idea is it's still a box, because the box was still what was wanted, right, office space. But this idea was like, well, let's take the box on the road, right? International architecture. In theory, we could build this building anywhere in the world, and by and large, the culture there can accept it. Straightforward building principles, again, office space, still the emphasis, so you are getting that. You also know from our journey, I've talked about how it wasn't until the 1980s when they began to shift away from the box and do more fun stuff, like contextualism. Here to the forward right-hand side is Gateway Center 4. It's from 1983, a very dramatic bend in the building following the river. It's got an outdoor dining space, so you can have your lunch on the Chicago River, unheard of throughout our history. And notice the green reflective convex glass, you do get a kaleidoscope effect. And then here to our left, I used to not even talk about this building. Then 6 years ago, this building got a new owner. Once that owner learned I was not talking about his building, boom, slam, mural, man. See the dot in the middle? You are here. Well done, well done. Yes, a map of downtown Chicago. Emphasis on the river, which used to be a swamp called Chicagua. Emphasis on the roadways, which is the grid system from the Daniel Burnham Plan of 1909. And folks, that dot in the middle there, that is technically that building, you know, and where it sits in the city on the river. I love that about that. This means in an effort to draw more attention to their building, you know, to really put it on the map,